Hi. Welcome to my surprise live stream to talk about the weekly transits of the week from Monday today, June 26th, all the way into July 2nd. And I am not going to do a 2-hour live stream. I'm going to just go right into it. I won't even wait for people to join in on here. I'm just going to record this. And before I do that, I just want to say thanks to those who have been subscribing to my channel and supporting. Hi, Lauren. I see you in chat. What's up? But yeah, those just going to catch this later. You're like wondering who I am. I'm an astrologer, professional astrologer. My name is Nicolas Polymonakos. I'm also known as Sparkles of Gold. I'm going to jump right in to the transits here with an intro first to get you to understand who I really am, a part of who I am. Take us to the skies to understand where we come from. That where we come from is where we are, and where we were, and where we will be. That's an intro. That's an intro for those that don't even know me. If you made it this far, that's what I'm giving to you right now. My quick mantra into the transits of the week. I'm going to blaze through these. I have a lot to do later today for other tasks, so on and so forth. So I hope you're digging this so far. I want to say hi to Ace of Spades in the chat. What's up? The Ace of Spades. It's the Motorhead song. Let's do some more intro first. Amina, hi in chat. Welcome to the blasting noise. As we take off into surprise live stream transit time, as I blow your ears off on the audio, it's a little coming in a little too hot. All right, let's jump in. Right now, the chart I have in front of me is 11:37 a.m. Pacific time on the West Coast. I'm going to jump in right here to something that happened earlier this morning. Hence the music. Mars in Leo. Squared by Uranus in Taurus, an explosive transit. Whatever sign that it's in, whenever we hit a Uranus-Mars square, we have a break-off, a breakaway, a blow-up, a surprise, something coming out of the blue, unexpected circumstances. All types of things here when we have Mars and Uranus is squaring off at 90 degrees with each other. Now, some people could take this as the thing that is like brutal and hard, and it can be depending on the scenario in one's life, depending on their fixed parts of their chart. What I mean by that is Mars is in Leo right now, Uranus is in Taurus. They're in fixed signs, the most stubborn of all signs. We've been doing this stubborn fixed story here for several years now with a bunch of transits, and here we are with I think I was coming in hot there with the mic. And here we are with an explosive thing that's been building up for the last 3 days. It was official at 2:22 a.m. this morning Pacific time. Now, it doesn't go away. I think this energy is with us the whole week for the rest of the week. I think that the surprise aspect of Uranus, the unexpectedness that Uranus brings, along with the action-oriented planet Mars and wanting to initiate, constantly push through a fire sign, a fixed fire sign like Leo, can create massive amount of tension, and where one there's something that you want and that you aspire to and desire with Mars and Leo and passionate, and then you have this other planet Uranus that's side swiping the planet basically. So a lot of energy has been built up here, is going to be letting off today and this whole week, I think, and that's where I say explosions, unexpected happenings, but really it's a tension release in the end. Is the tension release feel good, or does it feel like hell? you could have both, actually. It just depends on when you feel good, then it feels like hell. It was horrible. Then you realize how good it was to have the break. I want you to understand, if you're directly affected by this transit in the chart, you have Leo placements in your chart. You have certain things in fixed degrees, fixed signs between, let's say, 18 to 22 degrees, 23 degrees. You can expect these things have already been happening in the Leo and Taurus parts of your chart. You have to be careful with the way you push things, literally with your physical universe, whether you're driving, riding your bike, or conversations. Mars is cutting, and if it's got a passionate fire sign of Leo and a Uranus, unexpected erratic energy that wants to uproot it and change something for deeper subconscious reasons, you could see how things can get cut or severed or break or explode. So just make sure you bring in calming situations, containers that help you to stay steady with your fixed energy. I think relaxation techniques and breathing, and like I always talk about on this channel, not only that, understanding the power behind a Uranus-Mars square, and that you can harness this to make the changes that you need in your life, that you can be behind the implementation of the changes for a new and different objective way of looking at a current situation in the fixed parts of your chart. And there is where you could take advantage of the newness, the progressiveness, the otherworldly quality of Uranus and what it wants to bring, a different view, a different path that you would never have thought of before. Again, can have worldly events happen to you and then you have to react, or if you feel like you're in the driver's seat with this Mars-Uranus thing, that you can take a different path, a new way, something to break free from the stagnation and the frustration and the tension that's created in the Taurus and Leo parts of your chart. You damn Leos, you Leos right now, Leo risings, anything in Leo, you are on stage. It's going down for you. And a transit like this is huge. By the way, Uranus is going to also, Venus is going to do this with Uranus very soon too. So this is a story. And there's multiple factors in all this too, because of the retrograde that's going to happen with Venus. There's going to be several hits with Jupiter and Uranus. All right, that's a good way to start the day. I at 5:23 p.m., we will have Mercury finally leave Gemini, which is currently right now in the sign of Gemini at 29 degrees. This is a let me get this right for you all. And that's not the way to do it, Nicholas. That's the way to do it. So basically, today, Mercury in Gemini, it's its last day, its last degrees within hours here. And we have loved the last 2 weeks of Mercury in Gemini. It's been an overload for many people who aren't used to living the mercurial Hermes life and the rapidness of Mercury being in its home sign. Some people, they can't deal with it. It's like too much. They don't know how to multitask and to juggle multiple thought patterns and information pieces that are coming into their world, especially if they're filled with a bunch of water in their chart and they're just like not vibing with it. Well, you're about to get some more water because we're about to go into Cancer. But for those of us who are air signs, for those of us who have fire in our charts, we've been lit up the last 2 weeks with Mercury going through Gemini, because it left 2 months of Mercury being in Taurus, its slowness and the retrograde cycle. It just completely shattered, pushed through Mercury through Gemini, but along the way aspected fire, aspected Mars and Venus in Leo, and we've had a new moon in Gemini. We had a Neptunian influence with Mercury in Gemini, so we've had a lot of activity with boundarylessness, with thoughts, at the same time the juggling of all those multiple thoughts fueled by Mars and Venus in Leo. And so this is going to change here within hours at 5:23 p.m. when Mercury goes into Cancer. I will, what they call, annotate the screen so you can see the 29 degree that I'm looking at right here, which will soon change. Currently the moon is in passive aggressive Libra, which has a tendency to do air sign, and here considering the Mars Uranus challenges that are happening today and this week, and we have this moon, emotionally coping moon that wants to harmonize. Really, Libra moon will not want to rock the boat, cannot avoid it. Yesterday and today and even until tomorrow, the Libra moon is ruled. Here's the Libra moon at 9 degrees, is ruled by this Venus in Leo, and in a sense with Mars, and Mars is getting completely sideswiped in interacting with Uranus that I mentioned here earlier. And so it's rambunctious energy. And in my opinion, if it doesn't have the outlet, and if it pulls the weird Venus-y thing off that Libra energy has a tendency to do, which could gloss over it can gloss over, in a sense, how Mars function. Mars wants to initiate and do it now. Now. Give it to me now. Venus is like, hold up, in Libra, hold up. Let's listen to everything and look at all the angles, and it's all pleasant and blah, 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 and that's great. But in this instance, I don't think it's great, actually. I think that I think Mars should have its way. I think the fact that Venus is in Leo should have its way, and forget the passive aggressiveness. Forget like, oh, it's not rock the boat. I think it's inevitable to rock the boat here on a day like today or yesterday and this week, actually. I think the interesting part of this is when Mercury does change and go into Gemini, we have a little bit of a mental release here, and we go into more of the emotional spaces with Mercury being in Gemini. So it's a more pondering before you speak thing instead of the quickness of Mercury in Gemini. It's kind of the feelings and putting words to feelings. If you can do that, I actually think it offsets a little bit of the rambunctiousness and surprise of a Mars-Uranus transit that's today in this involved with this week. So there's inherently one's initial passion coming from the Leo part and having to show and prove itself with passion and desire and with that fire of life, charged by Uranus and wanting to show one's individuality along with some other transits I'm going to talk about for the rest later this week. I think it's unavoidable that people in one sense will speak their mind. It just won't happen in the Mercury and Gemini way. It'll happen with some feeling involved, and that is always interesting, isn't it? Ace of Spades, I'm sorry about what is going on in your world. I see that in chat. May it change in a good way for you. Let us go to the next day, which is Tuesday, tomorrow, the 27th. Let me move the chart for you all here. Let me do this and that. So right here, we are at, this is next day, June 27th. I got 11:37 a.m. here, but I'm going to adjust some things here. And the moon's still in Libra. It's going to sextile Venus in the morning. As we know, air vibes with fire. As a matter of fact, we'll just go with what I have right here, because you'll see here this 22-degree Libra moon we're going to do an arrow, is sextiling here, and already earlier in tomorrow in the day does it with Venus. So this air thing, fire thing is still happening. There's an interesting sort of mutual reception-y thing kind of going on here, sort of ish, with this. I think it's decent. It might give a little bit of relief as long as I think that Libra is straight up. Libra moon is straight up with things. I don't think cannot help it with Venus and Leo ruling it. But we want to remember here that things are very clear. Things should be very clear in convos in my mind with moon in Libra. And later, that's moon sextile Venus is 3:56 a.m. in the morning. We have the moon is going to be opposite Chiron at 6:20 in the morning. It's later in the day at 11:25 a.m. that we have a Mars moon sextile that happens, and this is just in the morning, okay? But I think what's interesting here, though, is the best part and most interesting part of the day actually has to do with Mercury And this is the reason why, because right here we have Mercury at 0 degrees, just entered Cancer. And we look at the nodes of the chart right now that are at the final stages, by the way, of being in Taurus and Scorpio. This is going to change here in the month of July. I'm going to do a July video, by the way. I don't know if I'm going to live stream it, but I'm going to do it, talk about the main ports. There's a lot that happens actually in the month of July. I mean, a lot of intricacies, actually. Very interesting month. So anyway, this Mercury in Gemini 1 degree makes a water or sextile to Earth here, and we have some interesting help actually with the nodal story that's happening in fixed signs. I think it here pretty much any help that the fixed signs can get these days, you take it and you run with it, because of the long story we've had for several years. Here, there's a way of communicating with the aspirations and the quest that Taurus is on in the North Node, with Jupiter alongside of it, in a sense of what is an inherent value to ourselves. And it's not just it's not mind, okay? It's of what gives us a sense of core base foundational security in the end, with the communication that's happening in the sign of Cancer, doing that with the node. There's not a reevaluation, but a more emotional a reinforcement of the quest that that Taurus is on with the node, and the eclipses for the last year and a half in Taurus and Scorpio, and with Jupiter alongside of it. Very aspirational on an emotional level, actually. I like it. So that happens Tuesday, 1:55 p.m. We're going to jump all the way to the next day, because I am going through it today. I'm not going to, I could make a noise like this. I could do this. Here's the next day. Here we have, you could see, this is the 28th. And it's interesting because we have Moon squaring Pluto, being in a Cancer sign. I'll leave that one alone there. That's enough. Gladly happens in the middle of the night. But it's like almost 2 in the morning Pacific time. The Moon goes into Virgo. And Moon's going to be opposite the nodes. Trine Mercury later in the day is going to trine the Sun. It's going to trine Saturn and be opposite Jupiter. So it's interesting. As soon as Moon goes into Virgo on Wednesday, we have all of these aspects that the Moon's going to make. And I'll just point them out here. So, what am I saying? It's not Virgo, Scorpio, Nicolas. This is the good thing about live streams. You make a mistake, and then you're like, wait a second. I was looking at the glyph, and I'm like, the arrow in the glyph is going up. The tail's going up on Scorpio, not inward on the Virgo. So, and I just talked about Libra Moon. So you'd think I have my shiz together here, but Scorpionic Moon coming through, which you could see in this chart without even knowing something. If you knew nothing about astrology and you were looking at this chart, it's guaranteed that someone's going to go look at a triangle that they see in the middle of this weird circle upon a circle in the chart, and they're going to be like, there's a triangle in the middle there. And they're going to might feel pretty good about triangles. People always feel good about a triangle, If they see a square, if they see some other symbol, octagon, they're not going to get the same feeling when they actually see the triangle shape, okay? So the triangle shape is going on because of the Moon in Scorpio, not Virgo, is trining that Mercury. So let's just start here. We'll just go 1:55 a.m. Moon goes into Scorpio. 5:23 a.m. Pacific, we have the Moon opposite the node. That's, it's going to be like this, opposite, okay? And conjunct the South Node, right? So there's that. And then, like, the next aspect it makes, this is a fascinating day, 8:31 a.m. Pacific exactly. Then you have the Moon trining Mercury, right? Eventually trining the Sun during the day at 2:49 p.m. Then the Moon in Scorpio is also trining, moving towards a trine towards Saturn. So if you look at this, we have, in a sense, on Wednesday, a grand water trine going on between Mercury and the Sun in Cancer, Saturn and the Moon, and even the South Node at some point you have, and I'll clear this out, I'll put another color here of blue, then you're going to have this moon eventually be opposite opposite Jupiter in Taurus. So a very interesting, secretly emotional day where we've had a build-up the last several days of a Mars-Uranus square. And now we have a bunch of water on a huge level, like a huge influx of water happening on Wednesday. And, for me, I as someone who is always learning about water in my own life, that if you're not used to this and you just went through 2 weeks of air with Mercury and Gemini, and now we have the entering week with Mercury in Cancer, then the moon hits Scorpio on the Wednesday, and then you have a huge influx of how a Scorpio moon is going to emotionally process and cope, which is intense, which is private, which is like singularly focused and could be obsessed and passionate secretly, but it has this amazing these vehicles for the Scorpio moon to do its expression through the Mercury being in Cancer, the water sign, and vibing with Saturn. There's support here from Saturn and Pisces, and it's supporting a conversation, a constructive, emotional type of way of communicating, and that this moon in Scorpio is bringing the intensity and the focus and the depth that Scorpio brings to wanting to get to the heart of a matter emotionally. So we have an amazing, actually, part of the week here that we could just go, oh, it's just another Scorpio moon every month, but it's not. And it's little things like this, so-called little things like this, where there's, I think, emotional breakthroughs and letting go and purging, possibly how one deals with the emotional stories in their chart. Now you just go look to the Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces parts of your chart, and if you have planets there, and so on and so forth. So this type of thing, and I see you in the chat, Joseph, talking about the sun you have the sun in Scorpio and Venus in Scorpio. This is good though eventually, and if you're working on needing to express some deeper emotions, not just Joseph in the chat, but for those of you affected by this, you have an interesting day on Wednesday and going into Thursday. And I'll bring up the Thursday part here, but I don't want to forget about something else here, because after saying everything that I have on this Wednesday, then you have inherently here, you have the sun really is trining Saturn. That alone for those who are Cancers and their birthdays, if anybody's born on this Wednesday, you could see what they're going to be born with. Now, as someone personally who has a grand air trine in my chart, a lot of times people will say to me like, oh, that's amazing, da-da-da. And I say, I guess so. It's what I know. And let's step out of this day, actually, because I think it's interesting. If we picture someone being born on this day of June 28th, 2023, they're going to come out of the womb this day. They have this massive grand water trine happening with the moon conjunct the south node, Venus and Mars conjunct in Leo, right? You just think about this. It's funny. Off the bat, if someone was born this day, I would be looking at this. And I'm like, let's disregard the houses here. Just if I was looking at their moon south node, something was going on, possibly with whatever the parental figure, whatever was signifying home, possibly mother, I'll say parental figure, that there is an intense energy sucking story going on. And I say that not that it sucks, but because the south node is in Scorpio and the moon's there's some sort of old school scorpionic moon habitual tendencies that the person's being born with here that has to do with their environmental surroundings and a current life situation around. Now, I'm generalizing here, but this is how I break down charts. I'm just going off on a tangent here. That person who's born this Wednesday is going to have it, but it's not that wild because they do have the grand water trine that's happening in Mercury close to the sun with Saturn helping along here, right? And so, and then even Earth sort of in Jupiter there helping out. It's fascinating to me that someone's going to be born with this, and that they're going to have to learn how to use their water trine, as in trines get lazy and things come to them easily. And so unless, like someone who's born with squares in their chart, they automatically have to learn and deal with challenge and change. People with trines or trines and grand trines in general, they have to flex the muscle because things come easily, right? They're sitting on the couch, it's easy. So whoever's born on Wednesday has an interesting situation that they're being born in. One thing I will also say and point out is eventually the moon is, and I'll get to the 29th the next day, but I don't want to forget it's 6:42 p.m. that the sun is going to trine Saturn. I went off on a tangent there, but I can't help but do that. Okay. And so I'm going to go to the next day because I'm breezing through today. Not a super long stream. We get to the 29th here, and we're still in the water place. We're still in this interesting water place. And, but what we want to point out is early in the morning on the 29th, Venus in Leo makes a trine. This is at 1:40 a.m. Pacific. Venus in Leo makes a trine. Oh, and does it need a trine, Chiron? It always does. Venus Chiron trine in Aries. And let me do this right here. So we have Venus coming in and connecting with this Chiron story. We're digging this. I think people might have a tendency to forget. If you're watching a ton of astrologers on YouTube, you're on Instagram and TikTok or whatever, we're talking about this Venus and Leo story in the retrograde. And right now, Venus is going over these degrees that it's going to go over during the retrograde. They call it shadow, all this stuff. But we don't hear a lot about is that how this Venus retrograde is imprinting, affecting the Chiron and Aries story the whole time. That there's this whole basis and story of Venus being reborn and going from evening star here slowly. It's going down in the sky, its brightness slowly, and it's eventually going to go, retrograde, and it's going to go into the sun. You won't be able to see that. She disappears for a while, like 40-day period. Eventually, it's going to come up as morning star, right? But interesting through all of this is Venus's connection to Chiron multiple times. So it's not just, Venus's connection to Jupiter that's going to happen at certain levels, or Uranus too. That's the deal. But on a deeper level, on this interesting wound level, we have a story with Chiron and Aries here. And I think this is fundamental. I think this is huge when it comes to what I've talked about on my live streams and channels, embracing the wound itself. If you are directly affected by this, if you're going through your Chiron return or the Aries part of your chart, you have planets in Aries around these degrees, basically, let's just say 15 to 23 or something like that. But really, Venus is going to station retrograde in Leo at 28 degrees, right? And then start to go back. So when it comes back, it's going to hit this and trine this Chiron again for the second time and then a third time. So that's a deal right there. That is a huge thing not to be missed, that the Chiron story is well in play, and it's fascinating because of how Venus wants to express herself in Leo, and this whole thing of independence and showing itself and its creative power, and the little death that's going to happen with that. I think for people who have Venus in Leo, by the way, I got Venus in Leo special right now. It's discounted rate, but there's a little death happening. And I think Chiron here kind of shows you the way to the death, the metaphorical death, and shows you part of the wound that could be fixed and healed and used in a death and rebirth process when we deal with the Venus retrograde story. So take note of this on Thursday if you're affected by this in your chart. And if you don't know anything about your chart, by the way, just hit me up. I do chart readings. It's what I do. It's how I make a living. And what I'm going to do a call to action at the most wounded part of the reading this session, this live stream, is please subscribe to my channel. Using the Chiron right now to my advantage. So anyway, make note of this, okay? And if you're affected by this, journal about this and see what comes to you from the more expressive part of healing. Because by the way, we have our ointments in our salves and the things that we take and things that we do when we deal with wounds, right? But I also think that the wounded process, that whenever we're wounded in some sort of way, is definitely ritualistic. And I think in our society we hide that, we suppress that, we don't share that enough, you know. And your own world and your family, your community, your friends, or whatever, is not so much involved in a collective healing process or one's individual type of wound and healing process, that sometimes we find ourselves, I couldn't ask for help, I couldn't say publicly that this is going on with me, or I don't want people to know, and everybody has their own story with this, right? I'm not telling you have to do this. I got my own story with that. But I think here with something like a Venus trine Chiron here, is I think individuality and showing one individual self is pretty much to deal with fire signs in general. And here we have an expressive way of healing with the Chiron, with Venus and Leo, in a way of where we're outputting is part of the purging process, and we can do it creatively and with passion. And their passion can be used in many different ways, and it can completely, you know, metamorphosize a situation. And in this case, with Chiron, help heal that wound itself if you're a part of this story. So I would recommend and I suggest remediational measures as creative output, what do you connect with creatively, whether it's with music or a collage, or you're drawing something, or you got to go scream in the pillow. I don't care what it is. As long as you're taking care of yourself, do it. If you can share that expression of creativity that has to do with your wound with those that you trust, I think you're bringing it to the high level here. And not only that, I mentioned this is the first trine that's happening during this cycle of Venus being in retrograde. This is going to happen 2 more times. The time that it happens during the retrograde is the most intense time, I think, where it's like a review period, it will be, of this particular Thursday or this particular point in time at 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 degrees fire Chiron. Okay, so that is something I wanted to point out. And that is the beginning of the day on the 29th. Moon's going to square Venus in the middle of the night. And then we have, in fixed signs, because Moon's in Scorpio, Moon square Venus. And then we're going to have Moon opposite Uranus later in the day at 5:22 p.m., which is connected. Okay. And if you've been watching this the whole time, it is connected to this moment today, June 26th, Mars-Uranus square, how I started off this live stream and the degrees that it's at, that the moon is going to trigger and continue that story too. Because it's squares Venus and Mars here, and it's in opposite Uranus. So the story doesn't go away after Monday, June 26th, technically, when Mars squares Uranus, right? That's what I mean by this. It's around the whole week. The Scorpio moon brings that, but you do have the grand water trine that happens that helps you out. You also have officially, through all of this, thankfully, you have the official Mercury trine Saturn that happens at 11:23 p.m. Pacific on Thursday. That really is your go-to place in the backdrop to help you deal with the intense fixed energy and intense Scorpio moons opposite Uranus squaring off with Venus and Mars and Leo. And you have Mercury Saturn that supports an emotional word, an emotional vessel of expression. So an interesting 2 days when we go 28th to the 29th. This week's not boring. I think, in general, I think we need a break, but we're not getting one. But just look to the places where you go to replenish yourself this week emotionally as your home, okay? So let's get into Friday the 30th. And I'm going to do what I got to do to make this happen. And I will push it up a day. This is the 30th. And I'm breezing through the stream because I got an IG live I'm going to be on later at 2 p.m. Pacific, by the way, if you follow me on Instagram. I'll be talking about some of this with someone else, another astrologer. But anyway, I want to finish this on the 30th, Friday. We get to just another week, right? The moon the moon at 3:58 a.m. is, and this might be exact on the screen, but I know you'll follow me here. The moon, it goes into Sagittarius at 7:59 a.m. Okay, on this chart here, I'm going to move it back hours so we get to the place I want, actually, because I don't want to confuse you. So we're going to get to the place where the moon is at, I'm going to say at 27 degrees. We'll do it right there. And then I'll annotate the screen here. And we have moon in Scorpio that is going to be trining Neptune in Dreamland Pisces here. We just had a Neptune square with Mercury here in Gemini yesterday, 24 hours ago on the Sunday, the 25th. Here we have the moon after going through an amazing 48 hours of aspects. The moon is Scorpio, that it makes this beautiful submersive, diving deep, which Neptune in Pisces likes to do. Scorpio definitely likes to do in the moon in Scorpio. Trine that happens at 3:58 a.m. At 7:20, the moon's going to sextile Pluto. And then at 7:59 a.m., and this is where I'll go back, I'll just get it to there. It's an hour later. The moon goes into Sagittarius to start off the weekend, which comes out of brooding Scorpio moon, and it's like, okay, give me some air. I gotta get out of this internalized, intense place, watery, intense place of moon and Scorpio, and I gotta push out to somewhere, other places, and breathe. I'm also looking in the chat right now. I see you, Sarah, and I see you, Jasmina. If anybody's watching the chat right now, Jasmina is in the chat, and I'm going to be on Jasmina's Instagram here at 2 o'clock Pacific today to talk about a bunch of things. So I just want to point that out. I see you, Jasmina. So getting through this, here, let me clear the air, because we just went through a Scorpio moon of 2.5 days. And now I want to talk about the transits for Friday, which are fascinating. And now we're in a Sagittarius moon. Let me just change the vibe. Can't you feel the Sagittarius moon wanting to just push back on the boundaries? Aspiring to new heights. So Friday, we have an amazing day. We have the Sagittarius moon that starts off at 7:59 a.m. And then at 2:06 p.m., I think it's fascinating that we had a moon in Scorpio trine Neptune at 27 degrees. And then within hours at 2:06 p.m., you could see here Neptune right there. You could see this little S right here. It's really hard to see, but that's an S I'm pointing to. And that means it's stationing. Neptune stations to retrograde here at 2:06 p.m. on Friday. Now, this is a long retrograde period. Illusions, disillusionment, some dream that you were going for, aspiring to. Maybe it's not happening. Maybe it needs to be looked at. Maybe in the Pisces part of your chart, you have to do double, triple takes here now from Friday on for months here, because this Neptune retrograde story is going to make you question what you thought was real, possibly, what you were in a sense aspiring to. And I say aspiring to because in a sense, Neptune in Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter rules Pisces. So we have Jupiter and Taurus story. There is an aspiring thing. That's what happens with Pisces stuff. There's a dream to be seen, to walk to be lost in, to be enclosed by, to lose oneself in. So all these key words that I'm saying are going to be under a deeper review here for the next so many months, while Neptune is retrograde in Pisces. So there's a reality check here. And usually a reality check has to do with Saturn, right? But Saturn is in Pisces, so it's there in the sign, and it's not connected by the degree. But there is something happening here that will, especially if you have stuff mutable and mutable signs between 22, you could say, to 28 degrees mutable, or if you're got Pisces stuff there. You're about to get your second wave of Neptune going over your world. And this is where you have to decide what the hell is going on, or I don't know what's going on. You know what happens during Neptune transits? You will hear people say the thing that Libras typically say. I don't know. They do know. They're just trying to weigh the shit out, Libras, but I'm making fun of them. But really, Neptune is, I don't know, really. And when you think you know, you don't know. And then when you're out of a Neptune transit, you really didn't know. But then you could see what you did know, but you didn't really get it all. So that kind of way of being can really mess with people. Some people are born this way and they can deal with these kinds of patterns. But for other people that have affected by a Neptune transit right now, or even people, first Saturn return people right now who have Saturn and Pisces, you got a Neptune thing happening here by sign that's interesting. And so you're going to have to reconstruct or re-envision during this Neptune retrograde. So just want to point that out. That's on Friday. But hey, we're not done on Friday, actually. Another a fascinating day on Friday, because after the retrograde stationing that's happening at 2:06 p.m. Pacific, we have the moon in Sag, in a mutable sign that's going to square off with that Saturn and Pisces, but it's at 10:05 p.m. Pacific, which is going into July 1st for people Central, East Coast, other parts of the world, where we have my favorite transit of the week. And I think I just started something, by the way. I'm going to say my favorite transit of the week. I got to remember this. I got to have a favorite transit of the week graphic. Okay, hold on. I'm going to write this. No, I'm not going to write this down now. I got to, Nicholas, remember your favorite transit of the week idea, and make a note to yourself later that you will create a graphic for this. So whenever you say it in the future, you will press the button, and then like a favorite transit of the week thing happens on the screen, and maybe you'll accompany it with its own little sound. Okay, so there you go, noted. So here we go. I'm going to move the chart up so you can see this. Right now it's at 8:37 a.m. on Friday Pacific time. I'm going to go all the way up and breeze through the day like we always do in life, and because life is such a breeze, isn't it? And let me get this just right. I want this just right. So I'm going to have to clickety-clack all the way to 10:05 p.m. Pacific. And I'll leave it right there. And I'll go right here like this. Grab my annotator. Why is this my favorite transit of the week? Is because Mercury is at 9 degrees. The sun is at 9 degrees Cancer. And we have Mercury going into the sun for a conjunction that happens. It's interesting to me because even though technically it is happening here at 9 degrees here on Friday, it's really been happening this whole week. And ever since Mercury went into Cancer on Monday at 5:23 p.m., we have this movement towards the sun and this rebirth process that happens when Mercury goes through. And there's a couple ways this happens. We have the way that it happens during a Mercury retrograde, like when Mercury was in Taurus. And then we have these other ways, these inferior and exterior conjunctions with the sun. Here, Mercury is basically going into, if I'm correct, it's going to be going into a morning star, a phase here after it goes through the sun. So this is an important moment here in a Mercury cycle. If you have been paying attention into Mercury cycles, we pay attention to Venus cycles, we pay attention to all the cycles, but we can't underestimate a Mercury movement in your world, especially if you're Virgo or Gemini rising. We got Mercury in Cancer. We want to pay attention to this moment. And I like this because in a sense, there is no words here. Me, Mercury in Gemini, doing this live stream at 29 degrees of Mercury in Gemini, want no words. I want my mind to be gone. That is my intention for this particular aspect here, is that Mercury doesn't necessarily deal with the mind all the time. There's also if you think about what our body tells us, what our nervous system tells us, what our stomach tells us. We're hungry, we're grumbling, our nerve, all types of things. What is our body telling us? And I'd like to think in that embodied approach, especially when it comes to the sign of Cancer, because one can start to communicate with themselves and even with other people from an emotional embodied place to understand where they're coming from, because you can't put words to that kind of shit, right? So it's like sometimes it's a different language. It's a different language, and that is my intention personally for me. And this Mercury CAZIMI with the sun. I'll jump in the chat here because I see a bunch of stuff in the chat. I'll do that, but I want to point this out. We have an incredible week, but Thursday or Friday, a Scorpio moon trine with Neptune. Then Neptune goes retrograde, stations retrograde, and then we have this CAZIMI to go through in its rebirth with Mercury. So, and then I will get to Saturday really quick because I'm going to do the first and the second, and then I'm going to be done with my stream because I got things to do. But I'm going to go say what's up in the chat really quick and acknowledge you all. And just to take the, I think I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to look at the chat like here, like I'm sort of looking at you. Sarah, I see you, by the way, in the chat. Sunbeam Network, Alex, Tiffany, what's up? Sarah, Leah Mari, thank you, Leah Mari, for the super chat. I see you in the chat there. It's a yellow super chat, which goes along with the sparkles of gold colors. I appreciate you in super chat. For those who don't know, when you look at, if you're watching on mobile and you're wondering why you don't see the chat, you have to, on mobile, you have to press the chat button to see chat. If you are on desktop or laptop and you're looking at the chat on the right-hand side of the screen, where you would go comment, underneath is a smiley face and a plus symbol, and then a box that has a $sign there, and people can donate to the stream, which Leah just did, and it's called a super chat. And Leah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. The cost of ice cream these days, you're helping out with that part of my life. Because it gets hot up in this room. I'm joking, but I'm not joking. Leah, thank you so much. Tizzy and X, hey, good to see you. Andrea V, good to see you. Oh my God, was literally just thinking about your live streams when I saw Neptune was going retrograde. Yeah. Lisette, how are you? Angela, sparkles back to you. See you in chat. Amelia, you're late in other part of the world. Glad you were able to do this. Jenny D, I see you in chat. Thank you again, Leah, for the super chat. It really helps me and actually pays the bills for me to do the channel and to take care of stuff. I just want to say what's up to you. And for those who've joined on my surprise stream, I'm going to put something in the chat here, by the way, before I finish the last 2 days of my transits. And I am 47 minutes into this live stream. I do not want to go past an hour and 15. I'm going to want to do less. But I want to see if I actually can pull something up here. And while I do that, and I'm about to finish, I'm grumbling right now. I'm grumbling because I have a reason why I'm grumbling. You just can't see it, and I don't want you to see it. But this is what happens when you do live streams. This is what happens. So I'd sure like, right now what you don't see is I have 3 screens in front of me, and I have 2 computers, and I have 1 keyboard, and I have to switch the keyboard between both. And it's sometimes it's only a thing at 29 degrees Mercury and Gemini that would be going on. I'm gonna miss Mercury and Gemini. At the same time, I need a break. My brain needs a break. I've had a wild 2 weeks of tasks. I am going to put something in the chat here, and just hang on there with me, okay? And I will do it like this. I hear at. Can I see my chat window, by the way? Where is my... There we go. Here in the chat is an IG profile. It's Jasmina's Instagram. She's in here on the stream at 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to be on her IG. We're going to do an IG live. She asked me to be on there. I'll be talking about the transits of the week and throwing anybody for a loop. by anything that I'm going to do. So that's what's going on for me at 2 o'clock Pacific, which is in a hour and a half here. So I got to be done here soon. So Lisette, thank you for the super chat donation. I see you, and I on super chats, I wonder if you guys get to choose the color, but I like the colors that are coming through. Lisette Ransdell, thank you for the donation on the stream today. Angela, way too much. I quit. I'm done with Mercury. Well, don't worry, because it's 5:23 p.m. It's going into Cancer. All right, so let's go back to we're gonna go to July 1st, so I can continue the Mercury conversation, because July 1st just jumps right into more Mercury. So here I will here's 10:05 p.m. Pacific on the 30th, and we are going to move into several hours later. This is wild. So I'm going to do it by the hour here, and I'm going to go to, there's 12:05. Yeah, there's 12:05 a.m., and I'm going to actually make it to 12:10 a.m. Pacific, which would be 3:10 on the East Coast. And why am I doing this? Why am I doing 12:10 July 1st to start off July? Here's the reason. Is because Mercury, after it just coming out of the sun, it's still there with the sun. That I mentioned that happens on the day before or several hours before. Let me find Mercury. It's still in the sun and Mercury at 9 degrees here, as you could see that I'm pointing at here, makes a sextile to Jupiter in Taurus. So it's awesome. An amazing, rare aspect where you have Mercury and the sun together, and then it's connecting with Jupiter. Now, can you imagine if you think about how Jupiter intensifies, enlarges anything that it touches, makes it bigger than it is? Now you could see why this Mercury-Sun conjunction, CAZIMI and Cancer, is huge, because Jupiter is pretty much egging it on, pretty much lifting it up, pushing it outwards, and it's Earth and water together. And we love when Earth and water are together, because water has a stable place to be friends with, and Earth needs its parchment to be fulfilled. Like Earth needs water to grow, to expand. And here in Jupiter and Taurus, we have this expansion, and that it needs water, a water story, a water vessel with the sun and Mercury being in its death and rebirth, pure moment form of going through the sun, and it feeding the Jupiter and Taurus, and Jupiter and Taurus enlarging and holding it up. It's awesome. And in the end, if you go look to what rules Jupiter and Taurus, it is Venus, and you have an interesting story here. You just have a fascinating story, because it actually plays into the Venus retrograde story here. And so I want you to make note of that 24 hours of Friday. This whole week, just when you thought you were over with transits, you have an amazing series of events with the Scorpio moon, with Mercury going into Cancer. We start off with Mars Uranus as I'm doing this live stream. That's all this whole week, a grand water trine. So it's like an amazing thing of a series of transits that happen. Super Lucky Kitty, thank you so much for the super chat. I see you in the chat. Thank you for the donation. It's appreciated. Thank you so much, y'all, for hanging with me on the surprise live stream. So I'm looking at the chat. Jenny D, I'm loving Mercury and Gemini. So many ideas spilling out of my head. Yes. I hear you. It's about to end in a couple hours. I've written down all my ideas, in the sense the ideas that come up during Mercury and Gemini transit don't have to end when the transit ends. It's like, in a sense, kind of goes through a process actually with what I'm talking about, really, because if you think about where Mercury just went through, and now it's going to go through CAZIMI with Jupiter here, what do you do with the ideas in your head that you had during Mercury and Gemini? And here it goes into Cancer in the rebirth period, and then it's Jupiter elevating it. It's just like, it's you love this stuff. You have to love this stuff, and you make the connections to your own chart in your own way to see if you're directly affected by these degrees and certain placements in your chart. You want to use this to your advantage. Remember, 50% of the battle in astrology when we're learning about ourselves is we actually see and start to understand the transits. You can come see me and get a reading by that, and you can get my insights. And if you're learning, you do the insights with yourself. And if you got 50% of the battle done to see how it is, then you could feel that you're part of the story and you could do something with it, or at least know what you could do when you react to situations this week, okay, and in the future. So there you go. That is 12:10 Mercury sextile Jupiter, 3:25 a.m. The Sun sextiles Jupiter, and later in the day, Moon trine Chiron, Moon trine Venus. Right here, the Moon in Sag mutable. Sag fire is going to vibe eventually. Let me just I'll move it up by hours. How about that? Because just make it somewhat legit. As we breeze through, I'll move up to like 6 something ish, 7 here p.m. Pacific, and then you could see Moon is going to make its vibes. It's gonna trine Venus and eventually trine Mars on the fireway, and also here's Chiron at 19 degrees. So you kind of have a building. By the way, here's 19 degrees, and I go bring it up to Venus. You have a building fire trine. In one way, it's kind of roughly there. So that Moon and Sag will do those aspects. 5:29 Pacific, Moon trine Chiron. 8:21 Pacific, Moon trine Venus. Oh my God, I'm flipping my calendar over into July and my notes here. What else? I wrote a bunch of weird stuff on my notes. Sometimes I don't tell you what's on my notes. I have weird things that I write down there. You will never know. I can never tell you anything. No matter if you're my best friend or a stranger or a client, you will never really know what's on my notes. No one will. I need to burn these things afterwards. My secret. My secret. As we ascend into July 2nd, Moon trine Mars at 2:18 a.m. Pacific. Moon squaring the recently stationed Neptune in Pisces. That happens at 6:33 a.m. and then we have a moon void, and then we go into we're in Sunday 7:33 a.m. and I'm going to end my live stream on this day. Let's bump it up a day. Excuse me. I'm going to bump it up to what I really want to show you something. It's just a week. I actually think this week there is a revelatory experience happening with embodied approaches. That's all I'm going to say. That's sort of what's on my notes, and I won't get into more why. It's just a little prediction for you, a little sneaky something I'm throwing your way. I don't divulge everything, and I don't want to, because then life would be effing boring. For me at least. And you can tell Gemini with a bunch of Aquarius in this chart, he's got shake shit up constantly. That's how I roll. So I'm gonna bust a move here. July 2nd, Sunday, 7:33 a.m. and then I have to be done with the stream. And the reason is I'm gonna bust a move here. Venus squaring off with Uranus. We just had a week before today, as I'm doing the stream, the Mars square Uranus story. And here we are. Venus is following up. Venus and Leo, the biggest transit of the year in my mind. Here we go with the first square with Uranus. Boom, boom, kaboom. Boom, boom. Break free. Venus, I need to break free. And Leo, I need to break free. I gotta be me. I gotta be me. Get off me. Get off me. There's some rap song. Get off my shine. He's talking about how all these girlies are crowding his shine. Like, get off my shine. The spotlight's on me. Like, get off of my shine. That's how this Venus-Uranus could work in one way. The other way is in another ingenious way, another alternative way of dealing with relationship structures in someone's world. If you're affected by these fixed degrees, that you have another way of loving, another way of kissing, another way of showing your passion. I could get on the trip that you're going to see in the next week, that relationships are going to break off and it's going to end and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It could be. I don't give an F about that right now. I give an F about how we show our creativity and love, and how we embody ourselves, and how we show our raw, who we are person, our constructiveness in our creativity, and our pride in what we do. And Uranus here gives us an electric lightning bolt into all of that, and a first kind of hit during this Venus and Leo story. Make notes of what happened in the last couple of days with Mars square Uranus in this whole week that we just did, because here comes Venus and Uranus. They're going to follow through on that. I'm going to do a little bit more on that, I think, on a podcast this weekend to talk a little bit more on this. Moon goes into Capricorn at 10:20 a.m. We'll trine the nodes. We'll sextile Saturn. The third, I'm not going to talk about, but it's a lunation. And I'm going to end that right there, because I have to be done and I have to rest my mind, and I have to do this IG live here at 2 p.m. Pacific, where I'll talk about some of these things and more, and a couple curveballs, and see where the conversation will go. I think it connects to my actual Instagram too. If I'm correct, I haven't done an IG live in a while. But so that's the deal. Thanks for being on the stream. I didn't even notice how many people were in here. I see a nice amount of people for my usually streams. Good to see you. I see a bunch of people jumped off because I'm done. I want to say Super Lucky Kitty, thank you for the last super chat. Amelia, I see you in a chat about a tiny spider running up your... Okay, I see that. Angela, I'm thinking a lot of talking ideas for me, but not much grounded execution. I think that might be coming your way. I'm looking at the rest of the chat, and thank you everybody for joining me on this thing. Again, I think when I do the IG live on Jasmina's IG, that it actually connects to mine, and you'll be able to see it there too, and have a different version of all this. And I'm really curious to see what Jasmina has to say too about her astrology and how she might view some of the things we're going to talk about. And that's what's up. Thank you for joining me on the stream. I seem to be doing these now when it comes to transits. To be honest, part of it is because I have a lot of I'm doing right now. I'm editing some more podcast episodes. If you haven't seen, yesterday on YouTube, I published an audio-only podcast I did with Demetra George. Please listen to that. Please share that. Share it on your socials. It was a fascinating interview. I got about 5 to 7, 8 more that I did at the NORWAC conference this year. I still have other interviews that I did in the queue that I need to edit whenever I get to it. I'm busy doing that. I have a timeline of things, of videos I want to put on YouTube that are not live streamed. Hopefully I pull one of these off here when it comes to the transits of July. I'm not going to do a forecast for each rising sign. It's not going to happen, but I will try to pull off a July one of transits, because it is a wild month coming up here, and not boring whatsoever. So I'll leave you with that. Whoa. That's loud, Nicholas. That's loud. That is loud. You hear the tick-tock of Mercury and Gemini? It's about to leave. And hopefully that turns into something else where your brains are quieted. Like mine, finally. I'll be done putting out fires hopefully this week in my life that payoffs. I already, by doing these live streams with you and people coming on and acknowledging and being right there with me in super chats, I know that I'm doing the right thing. I know that I am on the path. I'm on the right path, and I'm going to stick to that life, stick to this deal. Thank you, everyone. Kathu Tarot, first time catching a live, except I'm only arriving at the end of it. It's okay. And I don't, not advertising these lives. Which tells me, I think here, depending on the election I'm going to do, it could be next week that I do a live chart reading call-in show in Power Hour. I have to figure out the day. So it could happen next week, and that will be advertised. You will see something here planned ahead of time on my YouTube channel. I'm going to send it out on a newsletter on my social media, and you will know when I'm going to do my Empower Hour, and I'll be taking live chart calls like I usually have been doing. I haven't done an episode of this for a while, and you will get notice, everybody, of this. Listen, I gotta go. I appreciate you all. Enjoy this Mars-Uranus square that's happening. Enjoy the last degrees of Mercury being in Gemini. Write down those ideas, put them down in a journal, and when Mercury goes into Cancer here later this afternoon, know that you're about to surf a wave of emotion this week into a CAZIMI. All right, y'all. I'll see you later.